Welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity Leadership, where we develop the cybersecurity leaders of tomorrow. Today's guest, Meghan Gorman, will be sharing her experience in cybersecurity sales leadership and how she got to where she is. Before we get there, the whole point of the show is to share with others so that we have a diverse perspective of individuals coming into this field. Without that, we won't be able to solve the complex cybersecurity problems of tomorrow. So please do share this with others that are interested in cybersecurity and sales today. And let's develop the leaders of tomorrow. Meghan, would you be able to share some of your background and what you were doing before you got into cybersecurity?
Good morning, Chris. Absolutely. I had a pretty untraditional path to cybersecurity. I started working Wall Street straight out of college and I worked in economics for a couple of years doing commercial real estate applications field, and then got into technology in general, not really specifically cybersecurity, but working with hardware and software, understanding networks, the basics of it all. And then I got an opportunity with specific software that dealt with security. So I started to learn more about cyber in that way. And then landed up starting my own managed security services practice and ran that for about 7 years. And with that, really had to learn very quickly service product, all the things all together. We offer virtual opportunities to clients, and it was really it was a very steep learning curve, but it was a way that I really accelerated my knowledge, was able to establish myself as, a sales leader in the industry. So in brief, that is my background, but I was trained at both the undergraduate and graduate level in economics. Definitely not something that I started out pursuing.
So, for those that are interested in sales, but might not know cybersecurity, or might be interested in getting into cybersecurity and might not have a sales background, how would they learn each of these skills and competencies based on your experience?
I think a big piece of it is to consider jobs that they may not be exactly what you're looking for. Then they get you closer. They get you closer to cyber or to technology in general. And then there's also doing your own research, your own investigations, starting to familiarize yourself with the various areas of the field. And then I think networking is a really big part of succeeding in this industry. Just getting to know people that are currently in the industry and learning all the different paths, because there are so many paths that you could take. Sales is just one path. You could do product engineering. You could do, you could be on the services side and be a VC or virtual CISO if that's kind of what you're preparing for. There's a lot of ways to go. And I would advise anybody that your first job, may not be the perfect ideal fit, but if it gets you closer, and if it's going to teach you something that you can build on, if it's a building block, then you should consider taking that and then having next steps after that you can get ultimately to where you want to go.
I love the advice of looking at the industry as a broader perspective and then narrowing down, taking building steps to get there. Because I think often individuals try to jump too far and they burn out trying to catch up and drink from the fire hose all at once. Now, as you grow in your career, what are some of the things that a leader should know as you're growing into leadership?
A couple things. I think that one, first and foremost, being in this industry, you're telling people a lot of things that they don't want to hear. So, whether it's from a sales perspective or a leadership perspective, you're coming in a lot of times and saying, we need to engineer what you've done here, or we need to get rid of some of the things that you've been doing. And you're going to have to change habits, change hearts, change minds. And as we know, that's not an easy task. So I think you have to be prepared for that. You're not always going to be horrified, so to speak, but you might be thought of a little bit as the enemy because you are really trying to make some major changes. And that may or may not be well received by the organization that you're in initially. So I think you have to kind of have that thick skin and the passion and the belief that this is the right path for them and that the risks of not doing anything and the consequences of not doing anything are too great to ignore. So that would be one big pieces of advice.
Okay. And for you personally, why did you become a cybersecurity leader versus staying an individual contributor?
I think it was always a dream of mine to have my own company. And I saw a niche that was at the time fairly underserved. And I thought, if not now, when? And what am I waiting for? Right. There's an opportunity out there in the market. I see that's real, that I've validated. I had sold some other investments that I had. So I was like, I have some capital to start this. And it was always a dream of mine. And I liked it. It was extremely the challenge of it all. An individual contributor, you're pretty focused on one thing. When you do your own business, you have to wear a lot of hats. You have to become an expert in a lot of areas. And even though that's challenging, it's fun. There's really again, I think that the opportunities for learning are really unbounded because you're getting approached by a lot of subject matter experts and people who are very prestigious in the field to work with you or have a partnership with you or consult or something like that. I've liked the unbounded opportunities that the owner having my own business presented.
And what do you think the critical skills for a cybersecurity leader should be?
I think, first you need to have the technical knowledge to maybe not on the in-depth level as an engineer, but you do need to have a technical knowledge and definitely be very familiar with the tools out in the market and really what the results are. What can you expect from these tools? And then I think a lot of the other pieces are compliance is a big piece. You have to know different compliance and regulations sets, what it takes to get there, and obviously which one of those applies to your organization. And then also to bring that as a goal and or an objective to your organization, and also bring that I'm going to make some waves here. We're going to change some habits. Have the gravitas to see that through to the better end.
Now, let's talk about some specific skills, and I'll ask you for your comfort level on the scale of 1 to 5, and why do you think you're so important? So the first skill is delegation. Why?
Mhm.
What's your comfort level with delegation, and why is it such an important skill?
I'm very comfortable with delegation. It's important because you simply can't. There's not enough hours in the day to do everything yourself. And in any leadership position, you have to learn to trust your team, trust their skills and abilities. If you don't, then you shouldn't hire them. And also, you're getting a lot of good diversity there because you may have somebody who's very good in a certain area or even potentially stronger in an area that you're stronger than you in an area. Giving tasks to them advantageous for everybody because that's going to get done in a very precise and detailed manner. And that's going to elevate the team and elevate the function. Yes, I think that delegation is extremely important. And yes, I'm very comfortable with it because I've seen the positive outcome when it's done right.
And in line with delegation, there's collaboration. How would you rate yourself on
Mhm.
a scale of 1 to 5? Why is it such an important skill?
I would say a 5. And I think collaboration, everyone brings their own mindset to the table, based on their experiences, what their particular path was, right? And when you collaborate with people, you're getting all of those experiences together instead of maybe just an engineering perspective or just a hacker perspective or former hacker perspective. So you're able to leverage all of that knowledge instead of just with one or two, or if you're not collaborating. So it's really, again, it goes back to the power of the team and what people with those different skill sets can all bring to the table is, I think, at the end of the day, a lot more powerful than any one person can bring to the discussion.
And for communication, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5? And why is it such an important skill?
I would rate myself, I guess, 4 or 5 on communication. It's an important skill because especially in cyber, because you need to all know what each other is doing and, not only to make deliverables, but also to make sure that you're all working towards the same goals, right? And communication is a key part of that. If you're not communicating, you don't know that. And, that's where things can really break. So I think it's very important to have those open lines of communication, no matter what between leadership and team and really make sure that those go both ways, that it's just not either a top down only. There's also a 360-degree feedback and communication that's always going on. Well, I would say daily is ideal to make sure that everybody is on the same sheet of music and what our tasks, what our priorities are, because those are obviously constantly changing. It's a very fast evolving industry. You could come in and think your day is going to go one way, and then something happens unexpectedly. I know you need to completely pivot. The only way to do that successfully is to be able to communicate effectively with everyone around you.
How important would you consider the skill of influence, and why?
I think influence is very important. I think it goes back to what I said earlier about the job of leadership in cyber is really a lot of, that your charge is to change habits and mindsets. And those are very difficult things to do. So I think that to position yourself as an influencer and learn to influence and persuade is a key part, because that you're going to spend a lot of your time initially doing. Because as humans, we don't really like change. We like things to be the way they were, and you're taking on a task that's difficult. So I think that ability to be an influencer is critical to your success, because that's really, I would say, one of the top 5 most important things in your job is to be able to influence the people's mindsets and change their habits.
How important would you consider networking as a skill, and why?
I think networking is a very necessary skill. And I mean, I think it comes from, it's helpful if you do have a passion, like an aspect of the field that you are very passionate about, whether it's privacy, whether it's protecting data that you just don't, you just feel very personally related when these breaches and things happen. And I think that if you bring that to networking and find other like-minded people and group, and there's so many out there seeing very specific niches in cyber, you can grow that. And then eventually, I think, leverage that down the road, not only for your own edification and learning, but also as valuable contacts for when you're going out there to look for a position or a consulting opportunity or something like that. Because this field is very, I would say, networking, a friend of a friend oriented. And it really is about building that community of not only champions, but also people that you can learn from, and people that you can help them, they can help you. And I think that's one of the key values of network in this industry.
What final advice would you give to future cybersecurity leaders?
I would give the advice of to be flexible, to be tough, but fair, and when I say tough, having that, don't take everything personally that people may say, because what you're representing sometimes isn't something. It may not be something particularly welcome. Again, depending on the organization that you're at, how mature they are, and have they been breached, have they not been breached. Those events change an organization significantly, and therefore the reception of you coming in as a leader. So I think it's important to be prepared for what kind of organization you're getting involved with, and then what the reception will be for you initially. But that's likely going to change, because there's likely going to, unfortunately, be something that's going to happen that will change their mind about you and what you represent. But it may not be something that's present out of the gate. So I think just have a thick skin and be ready to call on all the skills that you have in your tool set: collaboration, communication, technical skills, networking, all those things that we discussed.
Wow. Meghan, thank you so much for coming on to Breaking Into Cybersecurity Leadership. We really appreciate your advice. Loved hearing about your background. And thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It was a pleasure.